Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome if you're new. Thank you for taking time out of your day to check the video out. We have more PlayStation news, rumors, and leaks to go over and cover today. And we're starting here with a rumor that I think, if true, is going to make PlayStation Portal owners very happy. This is being reported by PlayStation Lifestyle. They say the PlayStation Portal's streaming capabilities currently allow users to either stream games from their PS5 to the handheld device or stream select games directly to the device without the console. However, a new leak may suggest that a new streaming feature may be on the way. According to a Reddit post by Get the Wets on the PlayStation Portal subreddit, a new feature is listed on games found on the PlayStation Store when using the PlayStation app. Specifically, the message reads, quote, "Buy this game and then stream and play instantly on PS Portal or PS5 only with a PlayStation Plus premium subscription," end quote. This seems to suggest that players will be able to buy a game and then stream it on their PlayStation Portal device, no PlayStation 5 required. The message has since been removed from the PlayStation Store, so it seems Sony isn't quite yet ready to let players know about the feature. For now, it may be wise to take this with a grain of salt, as we currently don't know when or if the company plans to actually implement this PlayStation Portal streaming feature. So, yeah, this is something that obviously take it with a grain of salt because it seems to be an unintentional leak, but that's the thing. It's officially been spotted on the PlayStation Store, which means that Sony did create this. They put it up there, but they put it up there too soon and they had to scrub it. And so it does seem like this is something that will be coming, and honestly, it makes the most sense. We know that Sony is developing a next generation handheld that will play games natively, but certainly that handheld is not going to play all games natively and will, to a certain extent, have to rely on streaming, whether that be through the console or cloud. And also, I would say something like this will entice a lot of people who own the PlayStation Portal to upgrade to PS Plus Premium. But yeah, the big thing with this is if it turns out to be true, then you really won't need to buy a PlayStation 5. You could just buy a PlayStation Portal as long as you are okay with the idea of just streaming your games and not being able to play them natively. So very interesting. I will keep you guys updated. The next report is a very interesting leak coming from MP First, who's been doing a lot of good work recently. They've been putting out some, I would say, pretty solid leaks and rumors regarding PlayStation. This time it has to do with the canceled God of War multiplayer game. And to me, what makes this most interesting is I think it actually gives us a potential hint at what Bluepoint is now currently working on. So they say here, again, coming from MP First, Sony is clearly far from finished with the God of War franchise, with several projects currently in the works, ranging from a TV show for Prime Video to a heavily rumored 2D Metroidvania that would return to Greece, drawing inspiration from games like Blasphemous. Despite the robust slate, some fans may know that another project from the saga was scrapped not too long ago. A report at the start of this year mentioned PlayStation was cutting 2 live service projects from its first-party studios. These were an unannounced game from Ben's studio, and they also revealed a look at that early last year, and a multiplayer God of War game that was being developed by Bluepoint Games. This cancellation caught many by surprise, with details sparse beyond the fact that it was supposed to be a multiplayer game set in the God of War universe. Thankfully, we recently gained access to development screenshots that offer a detailed look at the game's planned setting. The screenshots from the project that were shared with us offer a good glance at an early stage of development, showing some assets and environments that were being worked on for the title. The first noticeable detail that we can get by looking at this gallery is that the game was clearly planned to return to a Greek setting. This is evidenced by the presence of Greek temples, classic artifacts such as pottery, and other details we will discuss later. And so they have a ton of images here that reveal quite a bit of work seemingly went into this project before it was canceled. They continue, in addition to the temple exteriors, we can see other environments such as caverns and interiors that appear to have been designed to accommodate multiple players, such as an armory stocked with weapons and shields. Another interesting details for those familiar with the lore is the apparent inclusion of the god Hades, at least in name. We were told that Hades would have been the owner of the armory as well as the yellow sulfur pools visible in the caverns. So if the game was meant to fit into the established canon at all, the involvement of a living Hades suggests a timeline prior to the events of God of War 3. That's if this game was meant to be canon in any way. Otherwise, it could have been an anything goes kind of thing, not connected to the main God of War continuity beyond name. Another interesting thing to note is the clear Greek-inspired architecture evident in the buildings, but some environments look like they were plucked from God of War 2018 and Ragnarok. You can also see several weapons on display that have a hint of green, which reminds us a little of the weapons the Berserkers and other enemies used in 2018 and Ragnarok. Also, considering the size of the previously mentioned pools that's shown in comparison with the player mockup, we can only speculate on whether they would have had a specific function in terms of gameplay. Returning to Hades' armory, we notice that one picture shows the place looking different, as a red corrosion seems to have taken over the area. The state is described as a curse on the armory, suggesting it could have inflicted a negative status effect on the player inside. In the end, though, PlayStation lacked confidence in the game's long-term viability. This move is understandable considering the poor reception of most live service proposals received from PlayStation fans, especially given the fairly recent example of Concord. But now it is reported that Bluepoint has started work on another project, a third-person melee action game, according to job listings. The possibilities for the subject of their next project are wide, but the most hopeful Bluepoint fans are proposing a remake of the original God of War, a project many God of War enthusiasts have been requesting for years. So yes, that's what makes this so interesting, is we kind of get a glimpse at just how much work went into this God of War live service game before it was canceled, and the fact that it, is using a lot of, I guess you could say, rebuilt assets that would be reminiscent of, the original God of War. It does make a lot of sense if the next thing that Bluepoint decides to do after they realize this multiplayer game isn't working out, it has to be canceled, maybe pitch a full from the ground up remake of God of War 1. I mean, you can repurpose many of these assets and kind of get a head start in that sense, but also Bluepoint is very good, right? They've done a full remake of Shadow of the Colossus, they've done a full remake of Demon Souls. I mean, I have a lot of confidence that if Bluepoint wanted to do a full God of War 1 remake, they could pull it off very nicely. So I don't want to tell you guys that that's what's confirmed here, but getting a more thorough look at this canceled God of War multiplayer game and knowing what we know about the job listing saying it's a third-person melee-based action game with puzzles, I don't know, man. I think they may have actually moved on to a God of War remake. But we're going to move on to the next topic here, which talks about another PlayStation game that was announced, one that people are paying close attention to and think looks very good. This is coming from the China Hero project, being reported by Push Square. It says fans of the classic God of War games from the PS2 and early PS3 era may want to sit up and pay attention to Lulan the Cursed Sand. This is a new isometric style character action game from a China-based studio called Chili Moon, and it's being backed by Sony's excellent China Hero Project initiative. Scheduled for release as a PS5 console exclusive, the game promises a tragic love story of an exiled royal guard who returns to the fallen kingdom of Lulan amidst the chaos of war to find his beloved princess. And so it also adds you play as the skeletal warrior known as the Cursed Sand, mastering the power of sand to explore and solve puzzles in a perilous top-down world. Engage in realistic melee combat against overwhelming odds, defeat powerful enemies, and confront the fate of your own cursed existence. Your character will be able to toggle between bone and sand forms, unlocking different combat capabilities and puzzle solutions as a result. There's no release date attached to this just yet, but everything shown thus far looks fantastic. It's another good get for Sony. So yeah, this is something that I just wanted to take a moment to highlight because it just, again, kind of came out of nowhere. It is part of Sony's China Hero Project initiative, and it looks very promising. So let me know your thoughts on Lulan the Cursed Sand. But we're going to move on to the final topic here, which is a little bit of an update on Microsoft once again. We have a report here from Push Square. It says Microsoft has, for the umpteenth time, committed to a multi-platform future. In an interview with TBPN, as transcribed by GameFile, CEO Satya Nadella spoke for several minutes about his company's gaming business without once saying the word Xbox. He pointed out that following the firm's near $70 billion acquisition of Activision Blizzard, it's become the biggest publisher in the world, and now its goal is to bring its software to everyone. He said, quote, "We want to be a fantastic publisher, similar to the approach of what we did with Office. We're going to be everywhere, on every platform. We want to make sure whether it's console, whether it's the PC, whether it's mobile, whether it's cloud gaming or the TV. So we just want to make sure the games are being enjoyed by gamers everywhere." Nadella did touch a little on Microsoft's next-gen plans, reiterating that the organization intends to blend the benefits of PCs and consoles, which reinforces a lot of what the organization has been saying lately. However, he didn't get into the specifics. The executive then concluded that the best way to innovate is to have good margins, perhaps corroborating recent reports about the intense profit goals that have been attributed to the Xbox division. Quote, "Gaming's competition is not other gaming. Gaming's competition is short-form video. And so, if we as an industry don't continue to innovate both how we produce, what we produce, how we think about distribution, the economic model, best way to innovate is to have good margins," end quote. So, yeah, this is worth covering briefly because, yeah, for those wondering, the word Xbox was literally purposely not mentioned one time during this interview. And make no mistake, that is intentional. There are going to be some people who deny that, but, somebody like Satya Nadella is very, very media trained and knows that, everybody, including investors, hang on to every word he's going to speak. To leave the term Xbox out was very intentional. And they also mentioned how they're competing more with short form video, not other games or gaming platforms, which to me is maybe 50% true, but also kind of crazy considering it's like, well, I think you first need to focus on competing with other games and other gaming platforms and conquer that before you then move on to trying to conquer competing with short form video with your games. At least that's just my logic there. That's my opinion. I think that makes sense. But he does talk about the console without, again, saying the word Xbox. He mentions Windows. He mentions Steam at some point. He mentions their next console and how they're, again, going to kind of be fusing it and making it a hybrid with PC. So pretty, I would say, telling overall. None of this is surprising, but just another reinforcement that, yes, Microsoft is full-blown multi-platform now. Every game is going to be going everywhere, and they're going to be embracing a more PC-oriented approach with their hardware going forward. But guys, that's going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it informative. If you did, be sure to leave it a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new, hit the bell notification icon, and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.